All right, man, Saturday night, Green Bay Packers at the San Francisco 49ers. Same line, 9.5. The number 1 seed 49ers are favored against the Packers.
Yeah, and similar kind of analysis initially. I think that's rich. I mean, the 49ers are a fantastic team, but Green Bay right now is playing incredible football, and Jordan Love is playing as well as any quarterback in the NFL.
The two things I don't know what to do with, when a quarterback's playing great, you acknowledge that and you give it credit. But as we've said the last few days, like Jordan Love's at a different level right now because I just can't believe some of the throws he's making. I know there's a few plays like 3rd and longs the other day where there were some wide open receivers, but he's had patience in the pocket. He has that. You don't necessarily teach it this way for quarterbacks. He sits deep in the pocket, but that's more of like a let's create space and give my offensive line a little bit more breathing room, and I'm going to sit behind because I can get it there with my good arm strength. He's doing these things that other quarterbacks do. We won't even make comparisons that are just backbreakers for the defense. And I guess my concern is even if he regresses a little bit, like he should regress a little bit in that. Like you can't play at this level all the time, can he? And if he regresses a little bit, are the Packers in trouble? And then on the other side, the thing I'm trying to figure out here, the Packers defense, just 3 or 4 weeks ago, we're like, man, they make everybody look good. They're horrible. Tommy DeVito looked great. Baker Mayfield had a perfect passer rating. Justin Herbert had his highest grade of the season. All these guys. And they've been better in recent weeks. We didn't get to see them in a full game against Dallas. They gave up over 30 points, but there was garbage time. They had a pick 6. I don't know if this defense can handle the Niners offense.
No, I kind of feel like both defenses are not equipped to win their side. Like I think this is going to be a higher scoring game, and the over-under backs that up as well. It's like 7 points higher than the last game we just talked about. I don't know. The difficulty for Green Bay is getting ramped up across the board. Like that's the thing. Dallas did a bad job of getting out of their own way before you sort of dealt with the game itself. So it's not like you penalize Green Bay for that and you say, well, it wasn't as impressive as we thought it was. It was really impressive, but the difficulty level was set at rookie, and now it's going up to whatever, all pro or all Madden or whatever the hell the top difficulty in Madden is. We're just ramping the whole thing up, so it's going to be harder. It doesn't mean they can't still do it, but it's going to be a much more difficult challenge this week than it was a week ago. I do think that the area that affects the most is Green Bay's defense. They've been way better in the last few weeks, but number one, like last week was against Dallas, who couldn't get out of their own way. And then the 2 weeks before that, it was a Justin Fields-led Chicago Bears team. Sure, Fields is dangerous, but the Bears still aren't good. And then a Minnesota Vikings team that couldn't decide which terrible quarterback they wanted to put out there and get murdered by a defense. So again, the difficulty level that it's been playing at is a lot less than, okay, now go do it against Brock Purdy, who was MVP before that Lamar Jackson-Baltimore game, Kyle Juszczyk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, like all the weapons that the 49ers can deploy, now do it against them. Green Bay does not have the horses to match up with those guys on defense. Pretty much nobody does. So I don't know that they're going to have much joy in stopping them. I think the best that they can hope to do is stop them for a couple of critical downs, right? Forget stopping them consistently. Let's just try and win a few third downs and get them off the field and steal a possession or two. But I really think that it's going to come down to the other side. Like Green Bay's offense is going to need to keep pace with what the 49ers are doing and or do the thing that we've talked about for a while now, which is score first and put them in a hole and disrupt the 49ers offense that way by changing the game flow.
That's what they did last week, man. The Packers did it last week.
I mean, if they can replicate the way that Dallas game went, which is take the ball first, you got to win the coin flip, I guess, or, have the 49ers win it and defer. Get the ball first, score, touchdown, 7-0, right? And then the critical part, the same thing with the Dallas drive, get them off the field, get a stop. And that was close. Remember, that was 3rd and 7 or 8, and it was 6 inches away from completing a pass to CeeDee Lamb that was going to keep that drive going. 6 inches was the difference between that drive starting or keeping going or ending and getting the ball back. So get the stop and then get another score. If they can get up 2 scores early in that game, The 49ers haven't really faced that this season. They have not had that kind of kick to the teeth, and they do this offense does not function the same from behind. If they think, now look, if Shanahan is smart, he will look at that and say, it's 14-0, but there's 4 minutes off the clock in the first quarter. It's nothing. We don't change a damn thing. We're going to keep going, right? So who knows? Like if he sticks to the script and keeps playing the way they normally does, it doesn't change anything. But if that knocks them out of their regular flow and they start to change the offense because they're down 14, that I think really does play to Green Bay.
Some more of the history stuff that I used to think was irrelevant. It doesn't matter. The Packers-Niners history, it doesn't matter. But maybe it comes into play. Maybe there are certain matchups that are challenging or whatever it might be. So 2019 NFC Championship, Matt LaFleur's first year, and in San Francisco, the Niners beat the Packers 37-20. That was a game Garoppolo dropped back like 8 times, whatever it was, to go to the Super Bowl.
They ran all over them that game.
Ran like crazy. And then in 2021, last year, Aaron Rodgers won an MVP. Niners won 13-10. And the Niners weren't supposed to be that good. I mean, they were the team that they started slow that year, and then they got on a roll, and it was like, oh, yeah, since week 6 or 7, the Niners are one of the best teams in the NFL. And they went into Green Bay in a freezing cold game, won in special teams and everything, but they went 13-10 in that game. So Packers have this history. 2 out of their last 3 playoff losses have come at the hands of the Niners.
Well, it's always interesting when the coaching matchup there's a connection, right? I mean, and this can happen in a couple of different ways. Like we've seen the coaching matchup when Kyle Shanahan goes up against those cover 3 systems, right? He just destroys them. But now you're getting these matchups because Shanahan's offense has been so successful in his coaching tree. You're getting Shanahan versus his protégés. So Shanahan versus LaFleur, I mean, Shanahan knows the systems. Like they've developed wrinkles and they've changed and they've got their own spin on them, but Shanahan knows the skeleton of this. He understands how it functions. He understands the cracks, and he understands what causes it problems because he's been trying to work out the kinks for the last 15 years. So,
meanwhile, Dan Quinn, who just got beat up last week by the Packers, seems to struggle against his old coach, his old offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan, and his disciples.
I absolutely think there is a good chance that Kyle Shanahan will be able to help the 49ers defense slow down any offense that comes from his coaching tree, and in this case specifically, Matt LaFleur.
I think it's December. January.
Yes.
So you got to run the ball. I will say, not to joke about that, like Love didn't have to drop back a ton last week. They ran the ball really effectively, especially in the red zone. I think when you talk about the run game in playoff time, it's like it's not, gotta get your 25 carries. It's just you need to have different ways to win. And I do think mixing it up, that's when this offense has been at their best, is when they're mixing it up. And since week 16, when he came back, he came back from injury in week 15, but since that point, Aaron Jones has been outstanding. Like one of the better stretches of his career, not just statistically, PFF grade, like running well. He's missed 6, 5, 7, and 4 forced missed tackles over the last few weeks. Underrated part of this Packers offense right now, and having other answers. I think they are, it's going to sound crazy. They're more equipped to take on a juggernaut type of team like the Niners, maybe than they were even with Aaron Rodgers under center, because I think there's a little more balance across the offense. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight, I know the Packers fans have been peppering us with this throughout the year. Every time we say, hey, early in the year, Jordan Love is missing a lot of throws. And Packers fans would say, yeah, but the receivers weren't on the same page. And there was elements to that, right?
Sure.
But the report coming out recently that because Aaron Rodgers changed so many plays at the line of scrimmage, it really affected the play calling. And I think they were trying to say this not from a that wasn't effective standpoint. It was harder to keep the receivers on the same page. It was harder to, within the flow of a game, say, we showed this look, therefore we could show a similar look and then add this wrinkle to it and we'll create an open throw. The Packers in LaFleur, they struggled doing that. And that's the Shanahan scheme genius, right? Is we're going to show a whole bunch of similar looks, add a wrinkle, and then there's a wide open tight end or there's an open receiver behind the defense. In the second half of the season, they've started to be able to do that because Jordan Love's not changing as many plays. He's running the offense. And remember, Joe Thomas made the statement, Kyle Shanahan tells a story when he calls plays. Or what you mentioned about Bobby. I'm going to run some plays that might not have great APA. They might not have great success earlier, but it's setting something else up. That's how this offense works. And Matt LaFleur is able to do that more now because Jordan Love and his receivers are running the offense.
Yeah, I'm not going to make any kind of crazy sweeping statements about Jordan Love versus Aaron Rodgers, level-wise, but I think it was Nick Bosa talking this week said, Jordan Love runs, he does what he's coached to do better than Aaron Rodgers, right? He's closer to what LaFleur is wanting the offense to be or how he expects it to be run, whereas Rodgers, with the benefit of 15 plus years of playing experience and his level, I guess trusts his own ability to make it up on the fly more. Because this offense is the meta system right now, the most effective tactic available to coaches. I think actually a guy that's sticking to the script more may have more success right now. And Jordan Love is sticking to the script really well and making everything work. When the script runs out, Jordan Love is finding a way of just buying a little bit of time or, finding a throw that doesn't look like it's there and threading a needle and those kinds of things, but is generally sticking to what is being asked, what is being called. So you have almost the benefit of both worlds. You have the overall painting that's being constructed by Matt LaFleur, and then you have Jordan Love's improvisational skills or ad-libbing ability making those plays work rather than changing it to something else and making those plays work.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, when I watched Rodgers and I felt like LaFleur's biggest impact in the Rodgers MVP years was in the red zone, where they had wide open receivers all over the place in the tight red zone. But now it feels like all over the field. You're seeing the offense, you're seeing the system, Love's playing within it, and then adding his own spectacular plays to it, like you said. So that's been fun to watch. And it is can't give the Packers enough credit. I think we had a take earlier the year, at least I did. I said, hey, maybe next year the Packers, if Love develops and all this young team, maybe next year. And instead of next year, it was week 8. Maybe week 8 ends up becoming the big turning point. So the Packers are here for a reason. Other side of the ball, I want to talk 49ers offense, Packers defense, though. I don't know if the Packers can stop them. I don't know. I mean, the Packers run defense, they did a good job early against Dallas last week. They've had games where they've been really gap sound, and they've had games, the Steelers game comes to mind. I remember talking, because we always have to justify ourselves to Steelers fans. Why wasn't the run blocking grade unbelievable for the Steelers? I'm like, because the Packers were bad defensively. The run fits were atrocious. And the running from the Steelers was really good. It wasn't so much they got beat up in the trenches. The Packers have these games where they just completely out of position, don't fit the run really well. And the Niners, in addition to having Christian McCaffrey, a Trent Williams, they also do a really good job of, again, making you wrong defensively. So I have concerns about the run game and the pass game for the Packers defense.
Yeah, I don't think they match up well against the 49ers, but I don't think pretty much anybody matches up well against the 49ers. It's also difficult to know what this Green Bay defense is right now because it looked atrocious for a while. It's looked good in certain games, and then it's on a run of a few games where it's looked really good right when everyone had decided it was time to fire the defensive coordinator, Joe Barry, right? That moment seems to have been oh, quick, let's pull out all the good plays and save the job. But it came against Carolina, Minnesota, Chicago, and then this Dallas team that got blown out early before they started putting up a ton of garbage time points. So
we didn't learn anything in the Dallas game.
I don't think we've learned anything in the last 4 games. That's my point. We know that the defense played a lot better, but was that simply a product of who they ran up against, or are they actually a lot better than they looked? I think Jair Alexander, we know he's capable of being an elite top-tier corner, and he's made some really good plays. They've had individuals playing better, but I don't think we know yet whether the scheme is going to have that type of performance against a much, much better team and much better offense in the 49ers. But it has had games against good offenses this season where it has randomly shown up and done really well, right? If it has one of those games, and it kind of needs to, then it's really close. Otherwise, I think it's a shootout with neither team really being able to slow down the other.
Haven't even talked about Brock Purdy here today. Depending on where you use the cutoff, week 8, week 9, whatever it is, this is a battle of the top 2 graded quarterbacks since that random point.
Yep.
That might not be the most statistically sound way of doing things, other than telling the story of Jordan Love started to play much better football halfway through the season. Eye test, stat test, whatever test you want to put out there, that was true. Brock Purdy, the stats did get much better. They did get better too, but they were starting from a much higher baseline. Mm-hmm. But he also stopped throwing the ball to the defense for a while. And the one, call it a dud in there was the Ravens game. And even then, as we've talked about a lot, I think the 4 interceptions were, a little unlucky, a little inflated. He didn't play great,
right?
But it wasn't as bad as the stat line showed. So Purdy has been outstanding. The only team that's slowed down this Niners offense is the Ravens. And I'm just the one other thing I'll say, the Niners have had these games where they put up 450, 500 yards, but don't finish. They only end up with like 28 points. They need to finish those plays. They need to finish those drives. I think they're going to move the ball extremely effectively, and it's going to come down to the playoff cliches here, Sam. Got to win in the red zone.
Yeah. I mean, so one other element that's going to be, I think, fascinating in this game is the pass rush versus the pass protection on both sides, actually. I think San Francisco's pass protection and their offensive line generally is worse, but so is Green Bay's pass rush relative to San Francisco's, right? So you've got the 49ers offensive line that has Trent Williams and then a bunch of guys that are okay, and somehow, because everything else is so good, it generally gets papered over as not really a problem. Can Green Bay force that into being a problem? They've got guys on the interior have been making some plays recently. Rashawn Gary is on a quiet run of not having any kind of impact for like 5 or 6 weeks at this point. They could really use the version of Rashawn Gary that was playing last season before he got injured.
Well, the first 6 or
and
7
early
weeks,
this year,
he was at a ridiculous rate.
Right, when they were easing him back in. But he's just gone completely cold the last few weeks. They can line him up against, not Trent Williams, and they really need him to make an impact. And then the flip side of that is you got Green Bay, who rank in the top 10 in terms of pass blocking efficiency this season, who really sort of settled in with that offensive line with a kind of set group of personnel. Zach Tom has been a pretty good right tackle, good pass blocking, only given up 2 sacks this season. And then Rasheed Walker, who his tape didn't look great before he kind of nailed down that job. And you're like, that's a problem spot without David Bakhtiari there. He's really started to play quite well. This giant, like gargantuan tackle, 6'6", 320 plus pounds. He's given up some sacks, but generally speaking, like his pass blocking grade has been 75. He hasn't given up that much pressure. Can the 49ers pass rush overcome what has been pretty good for Green Bay and actually turn just an area that they haven't been thinking about for a while into a problem all of a sudden?
Some really good matchups to watch in this, for sure. I mean, the one last thing I'll say too, I think the linebacker position, I always reference that on the show here, and the challenge that the linebacker position has. I was talking about that a little bit with the Ravens against the Texans. The whole Shanahan scheme, the goal is to make linebackers wrong, to make box defenders wrong, and the Ravens are equipped to maybe, handle that against the Texans. And you've got Fred Warner in the middle of the field for the Niners, ready to handle that maybe against the Packers. Packers linebackers have had some serious issues.
I mean, that meme of, the Shanahan magnifying glass thing on the linebacker. Yeah. Like Shanahan is zooming in on Quay Walker right now and being like,
Devondre Campbell,
be a rough week for
Quay
you,
Walker.
Son.
I mean, this is sometimes if you're looking at the teams that are going to shut down those misdirection heavy Shanahan type of offenses, they're going to put you in conflict, high-low you, and get you moving all over the place. Look to the linebackers. It's another advantage that the Niners have in this one. It's why they're favored by 9.5 here, Sam. So I think you already
light rain forecast.
You did. See, I didn't even look because it's San Francisco, but yeah, light rain, not enough to affect things here. Sounds like you're going with the dogs this weekend.
Yep, Green Bay. I'm not taking anybody getting 9.5 points with Jordan Love playing the way he's playing right now.
I think I have to agree with you here. I should have checked the standings to see if I need to start, because if I'm going to beat you, if we have to pick differently here.
Right.
I should have added that up, but